The situation in Israel-Palestine right now is quickly escalating and getting out of hand. And I always don't like talking about this issue because there are so many conflicts and battles and wars that have happened in the Israel-Palestine region. And for every single one of these instances, I end up reading like 30 articles, and one site says, well, they started it, and then another site says, no, they started it. So let's just deal in facts. Here's what we know for sure. There were some Israeli teens, 3 Israeli teens who were kidnapped and killed. Their names were Naftali Frankel, 16 years old, Gilad Shair, 16 years old, and Eyal Yifra, I think he was 19 years old. And the killing was done by rogue criminals in the Palestinian territories. Now, the Israeli government is trying to blame it on Hamas, but Hamas, if they ever do stuff like this, they'll always, take responsibility. And they didn't take responsibility. And they're saying, no, we didn't do it, actually. And there were a few groups that actually came out and said, we did it. One of them was an offshoot of ISIS in the region. I think another one was a faction of Hezbollah that came out and took credit for it. There's a question as to whether or not they actually did do it, because I guess some, independent press groups tried to verify it and they couldn't verify it. So it's still kind of up in the air as to who did it. But the Israeli government responded by really cracking down, okay, in an overly broad way, as I'm about to describe for you right now. So they ended up arresting 350 Palestinians. Now, this was in June. But think about that, man. Wait a second. So yes, we get it. A murder was done. There should be justice. In every murder ever, there should be justice, right? But you arrested 350 Palestinians? Well, did 350 Palestinians do the murder? So why are you arresting 350? Why are you purposely arresting people who weren't involved in the murder? But nonetheless, they did. And also, I should mention that in this crackdown that happened in June after the situation with the missing teens, 5 Palestinians were killed in an 11-day operation, okay? So it's stupid to count casualties and try to keep score, right? But 3 Israelis got killed, and then they responded by arresting 350 Palestinians and killing 5, okay? And then things escalated even more. So Benjamin Netanyahu decided, after they learned that these Israeli teens were killed, they decided, fuck it, we're going to bomb. Now, what targets did they decide to bomb? They say, Hamas headquarters or something, right? But they didn't just end up bombing Hamas headquarters. They bombed, and then they bombed some more, and then they bombed some more, and then they bombed some more. And what they're doing is essentially revenge for the murder of the Israeli teens. So, as part of this revenge, Palestinian teenager Mohammed Abu Qudar was kidnapped and burned alive by a group of Israelis. Israeli troops also beat up the cousin of Abu Qudar. He's an American, and as a lot of outlets rightly pointed out, I'm not sure we would have heard of this at all if the kid wasn't American, because I'm sure there's a lot of beating up of Palestinians who just live in that region and don't live in the U.S., and then we don't hear about it, and it just never gets through. So nobody in the situation is innocent, okay? I don't want anybody to get me wrong about this. The Palestinians keep stupidly hurling these primitive rockets into Israeli territory, and it's totally ineffective. And then what ends up happening is the Israeli government, the right-wing Netanyahu Israeli government, ends up using that as a reason to do even more violence, and just really effective violence that ends up killing people in Hamas, but then a lot of innocent civilians, okay? But here are the 2 most important facts to me. As of this morning, now the numbers have probably increased up to this point, because this was as of 9 o'clock this morning, and according to Talking Points memo, at least 80 Palestinians are dead in the airstrikes carried out by the Israeli government. And there are 0 fatalities on the Israeli side. Netanyahu has also repeated that he is not interested in the least in a ceasefire. Almost said in a crossfire. In a ceasefire agreement. So it appears as if the violence is going to continue, and the scariest thing of all, man, Israeli lawmaker Ayelet Shaked took to Facebook to flat out call for a genocide of the Palestinian people. She was quoting an old letter from a Netanyahu advisor, and she said the following, quote, "The Palestinian people have declared war on us, and we must respond with war. Not an operation, not a slow-moving one, not low intensity, not controlled escalation, no destruction of terror infrastructure, no targeted killings." Even with the oblique references, this is a war. What is so horrifying about understanding that the entire Palestinian people is the enemy? The whole people is the enemy. The morality of war knows that it is not possible to refrain from hurting enemy civilians. It does not denounce the UN peacekeeping forces for killing hundreds of civilians in Angola, nor the NATO forces who bombed Milosevic's Belgrade, a city with 1 million civilians, elderly, babies, women, and children. Couldn't be more crystal clear. Flat out saying, it's time for us to just go to war with all the Palestinian people. All of the Palestinian people. Civilians, men, women, children, everybody. They are the enemy. They are the enemy. Period. This is the problem, man. This is the problem. And the U.S., especially with all the aid we give Israel, we shouldn't take this for a second, man. I would cut off all aid immediately if they continue bombing and hitting random targets, essentially. Okay? And Palestinians, stop throwing your primitive fucking rockets into Israel. They're not doing anything anyway, and they're using that to justify further attacks on you. And you're getting all the civilians. So what are you doing? Stop with the rockets. It doesn't make any fucking sense. But look, man, here's the bottom line. It's the violence isn't going to stop. They're going to keep escalating the situation, because when you read the history of the creation of the State of Israel, it was created by the United Nations in 1947 with the partition plan. And without any input from the Palestinians who were on that land, the UN decided unilaterally, that's nice, move aside. This is now the land of Israel. Sorry, but not sorry. It's sorry. Just move aside. Step aside. We're done. You can go live in other places here. We're going to plop the Israelis down right here. And then, of course, over time, there was more expansion, and then more expansion, and then more fighting and more expansion, right? And every single time they would take, violence from a Palestinian person and then use that to justify pushing further and occupying further, to the point where it used to be that it was all Palestinian land. Now, what is it? I mean, I don't know, about 25%, just a tiny sliver of it is Palestinian land, and they're under occupation. They don't allow people to go in and out. Sometimes they block humanitarian aid, and they continue fighting endlessly. Look, here's the thing, man. It gets sticky because, of course, the violence on every single side is unjustified. Violence is always not justified, right? But you have to think about it. What if, I don't know, people from Botswana decided out of the blue, you know what, Texas, fuck you. We're gonna take 25% of your land and kick you off of it. It's ours now. And then over time, the 25% became 35%. The 35% became 55%. What would happen? Would the people of Texas sit there and take it? Would they say, it's okay, we're not going to do any violence, let's just sit here and not respond? And are you kidding me? Every single Texan would be out there with a rifle shooting at any Botswanan they can find, right? So look, I'm not justifying the Palestinian violence by any extent of the imagination. Again, all violence is wrong. But the way that you stop the problem is to end the occupation. I'm not naive. I get it. You're not going to get rid of the State of Israel, right? By the same token, the United States of America isn't going to up and leave and say, all right, Cherokees, Algonquins, go ahead, take everything. It's fine. Now, obviously, at this point, that's impractical at this point. Not going to happen. But what you can do is fucking compromise. When the Palestinians go to the United Nations and they say, hey, we would like non-member statehood. Not even full statehood, non-member statehood. And the only people that vote against it are the U.S. and Israel. Okay? That's a problem. That's a problem. All right, look, the answer is a 50-50 two-state solution. Not the 1967 borders, which still had the Palestinians crunched up in a region that, isn't fair and isn't enough, right? You do a 50-50 two-state solution. You build a gigantic fucking wall, right? And sometimes good fences make for good neighbors, and you have the UN stay in there and make both sides act right and don't do any further violence. It's time to end this nonsense, man. It's time to end this nonsense. Both sides in this battle are just going to double down and triple down, and Netanyahu's going to say, we're supposed to fight these guys. They're attacking us. And the Palestinians are going to say, but you're on our land. What do you want us to do? It's insane. I mean, how would anybody like it if you went in there and just said, this is ours now? They wouldn't take it. We need objective adults to step in and make the right decision and pull back Israel and get them off of the occupied territories and give both full statehood and UN membership.